meeting was called in conformance with the Open Public Meetings Act with adequate notice as provided in the Courier Post and Burlington County Times, both on May 2nd, 2024. Could I please get a moment of silence? Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Ms. Arcaro Burns.
Present.
Mrs. Aurora.
Present.
Mrs. Barnes.
Here.
Mrs. Fowles Macaluso. Dr. Myatt.
Here.
Mrs. Morano.
Here.
Mr. Weeks.
Present.
Mrs. Miller.
Here.
Mr. Villanueva.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you. Can I get a motion for the approval of the minutes set forth in the agenda for February 18th, 2025 and March 10th, 2025, both the regular meeting and the executive session?
Second.
Any comments or questions? All in favor? Noes or abstentions? Thank you. Good evening. Why don't we start with our student board representative reports, please?
Good evening, board, parents, and teachers. If you'll just bear with me here, I want you to take a few seconds right now to just recognize how you're feeling. Maybe close your eyes even. Any emotions. Are you excited? Are you nervous? Maybe a little tired? Acknowledge those schoolers experienced a day like no other, Challenge Day. Walking in, most of us kids thought it was going to be another long day of adults trying to convince us that bonding is fun. Upon leaving, we were changed. Challenge Day provided us with a perspective and a peek into others' lives, our friends, our peers, and even our authority. Activities like Cross the Line, If You Really Knew Me, and Dropping the Waterline gave us a fresh outlook on who the people in the room really were, because they weren't some bodies, they were somebody. Challenge Day helped me learn a lot about how I regulate my emotions. Facilitators DC and Pam gave us a new viewpoint on how society expects us to deal with our emotions as girls and boys, as students, and even as adults. And a new way to show love and appreciation without having to even say a word. However, their best gift to us was called the formula for change. Step 1, notice, wake up. Step 2, choose, dream it. And step 3, act, do something. This tool, combined with new social compassion and perspective, has provided every single person who attended Challenge Day the means to make a difference, no matter who. Every Challenge Day participant I've talked to has said that they felt something change within them after March 5th. They felt that Challenge Day humanized them and their peers, helped them make friends with people they've simply ignored in the past, and helped them even make amends with anybody they might have wronged. So on behalf of every student and staff member who experienced Challenge Day, I just want to say thank you for giving us the space to grow, to giving us the space to connect, and giving us the space to be vulnerable. The impact of that day did not stop in the Eisenberg gym. It's showing up in our hallways, in our classrooms, in the way we treat each other. And if there's one thing Challenge Day taught us, it's that real change starts small, with one person choosing to notice, to dream, and to act. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, I'm Alyssa Manusos, and I'm the sophomore class liaison. Tonight, I will be informing you about our work with the Covenant House. On March 5th, the freshman and sophomore class decided to host a bake sale in the front lobby to raise funds to donate to the Covenant housing. We are also hosting a dine and donate at the Chick-fil-A in Mount Laurel on Tuesday, March 25th, to bring in some extra funding. The Covenant Housing is a place where homeless teens can come and receive help and be able to get back on their feet when they're struggling. The Covenant House annually hosts a sleep out that people can attend. Anybody can go to this, and it's where people can sleep outside for one night. with very minimal resources, without a bed, with just a cardboard box, to really capture the experience of what it feels like to be homeless. And although they can't really understand, it's a better way to help people understand. We are also we're doing our best that we can with help, and we're really trying to help, and we're raising a lot of funds, and we're also doing a drive for products in the schools where each grade will be signed a different product to bring in, and they will be also donated to the Covenant House. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, board. My name is Sophia Varam, and I am one of your junior class representatives. And I have the pleasure about telling you guys about one of the most exciting events. We have our prom for juniors and seniors that'll be.
So we met on actually March 9th or 10th? 10th. I mislabeled my file here. So the Finance and Operations Committee met on March 10th. In attendance were the committee members, myself, Jacqueline Barnes, Danielle, sorry, not Danielle, Brooke Mayat. Yeah. Oh, you were there. Okay. Danielle, I'm sorry. Yeah. Trust my notes here. Also from administration, Courtney McNeely, James Heiser, Karen Benton, Carol Butler, Jeffrey Ari, and Rebecca Ostrowski. First, we talked about municipal offering. We have some disused Cisco access points that are being removed and plan to sell those in lots to try to raise a little bit of revenue. Beyond that, we talked about the updated referendum resolution, which the board discussed in executive committee. So we'll have details about that in the referendum planning update, which is coming up. There were one overnight field trip request from the World Language Department, looking at a trip to Italy for the Latin Club in 2026. So they're getting out in front of it early and allowing time to gauge participation interest for that. Let's see. Moving on, we had a couple bid openings. We looked at the results of the bids that we put out for our transportation contracts. The good news is we were able to renew some of those contracts, and those vendors opted to accept just the CPI increase, which is less than it could have been. So those were all many of those were renewed, but because it was more than we anticipated, we had to find ways to absorb that in the budget, which that'll be part of the conversation later. There were a few. Let's see, the custodial services bid, we did not get the bids that we were hoping for with that one, and so we put those back out to bid again, and we'll have to see. Oh, I'm sorry.
Custodial opens April.
I'm sorry, yeah, custodial opens, that's right, it says here, April 2nd, that one opens. Let's see, some of the transportation ones have to be rebid because we did not get sufficient responses for those. And then also the HVAC upgrades at Baker Elementary School. That bid response, is that on tonight?
It is not. We extended the bid opening to April 2nd, I believe.
Okay. At the time in the meeting, we talked about that being opened on March 11th, but now that one's been extended as I'm being advised. So let's see. Also with personnel, there's a hire of a new bus driver, and then we're also posting for a director of school counseling. The job description's in the board packet tonight. On the chillers at the high school, we're working with the vendor on the terms of the warranty, expecting a positive outcome. We'll allow a renewal versus replacement of those. And then there were some updates that the committee discussed about the budget development process. And basically, we'll see what those updates are tonight. So that was the summation of the Finance and Operations Committee meeting. Any questions?
Thanks, Mick.
All right.
Claudine, you're up next for
Hi.
policy.
Policy did not meet in March. There are no first or second reading policies on the agenda. Our next meeting is April 9th. We anticipate some discussion on cell phone policy is continued, and we also have a presentation by the New Jersey School Boards Association on their their policy services that support our development and evaluation of policies.
Thank you. Do we have any off-board committee updates? Well, while you're waiting for that, I have one for MEF. So MEF is the Moorestown Education Foundation. It's a really, really wonderful organization in Moorestown, and its mission is to support the Moorestown schools through fundraising activities. The members of the board sit as advisory members on the committee, and in our last meeting, it was very clear that that the MEF is looking for more members to join the board. So if you have a inkling for helping raise funds for the school, to working with a foundation, it's a great organization that is really looking for new members to join in some capacity. There's a lot of different roles to play on the MEF. They have a great golf outing every fall, which is it's a big fundraiser, and they do all kinds of other fundraising activities, and they very kindly sponsor a lot of grants for the schools. The Interact Club, they recently passed providing funding to the Interact Club to do a beach cleanup that they do every year. So it's a great organization, and I encourage everybody, if you're interested in becoming a little more involved in the schools, then the MEF, the Moorestown Education Foundation, is a great place to look. I think they have a website. I believe it's MoorstownEducationFoundation.org, but I'm sure if you just Google it, it'll pop up. So hopefully your microphone is
Yep,
working.
I got it working. Thanks so much. I'm going to be giving you an update from More Arts. They have 2 teacher grants that we're approving tonight. One is a grant to Roberts Elementary in the amount of $700 for live musicians to perform at the 3rd grade show, and also providing a grant to South Valley Elementary for $1572.35 to purchase 13 Tabano drums for student use. Also, we have a big comedy night at the community house next week on 3/27. Information about that and ticket sales are at morearts.org. And also, we're almost about to finish up the musical season. More Arts provided concessions at Once Upon a Mattress and Legally Blonde. And if you're so inclined, this weekend, Friday and Saturday, at SpongeBob the Musical at UES. And that is all I have for More Arts. Thanks.
Mark, I just have a brief, actually, the Speak meeting is this Thursday at 6 to 8 on the 20th. That's their March meeting. But they did hold an evening program on February 27th, and it featured some of the district's dyslexia experts that outlined the program and services available through the district to parents that attended. It was very well attended, I thought, and very well done by our district experts.
Thank you. All right. I understand that our tech issues are resolved, and we're now streaming online, and this will all be recorded for future viewing for those that are interested. And so we've got an important update regarding the referendum, and so I will pass the microphone off to Dr. McNeely to get us started.
Okay, thank you. So first, I get a general update, and I just wanted to say thank you to the Home and School for all the work they've been doing at all the schools. We've been attending the meetings and seeing just the amazing contributions from our Home and School. Additionally, I do want to touch on the community ambassadors and thank them for their time in working with us to get the message out about the referendum, and you'll be seeing more information come out. We wanted to present tonight, and so we'll be in different public areas, and I'm sure you'll hear more about that soon. Additionally, and finally, in my general update, I'd just like to say, as I usually do, I appreciate the partnership with the MEA and the MA. We've had several thoughtful conversations and done some meaningful work since our last board meeting, and so I wanted to make sure that I recognize that from the membership there. Additionally, I'd like to get us ready for our referendum planning update. So tonight we brought our architect from Freytech, Vise, Hopkins, and Duthie to present the projects that we're proposing in the referendum. As you know, we're pushing for a fall vote now, and you also know that the board took their time to listen to the community's feedback on all the projects and is preparing to vote tonight to send a new proposal to the DOE for approval. The board is not voting on specific projects, and I wanted to make that very clear to you because this is not the formation of the questions or the tax impact. This is very simply pushing forward with a proposal that is different than our original submission. Before Steve gets started, though, I do want to take time to remind you of the need for improvements that we considered when proposing the projects you'll see tonight, and I want to remind you what they'll do for our students. If the bond referendum is approved, it will let us make improvements that our students need now, not in the future. And for example, we're routinely turning students away from our neighborhood schools because we just don't have space. We need the flexibility that the projects will give us to grow and change with our enrollment trends. That's big. We need to make room for what we predict is coming. We're also looking at projects that give us, position us well in the near future. We're expecting our growth from new and existing housing, and expanding the middle school and renovating our other buildings will help us get ready for that. So tonight you'll see some of the renovations to our schools, and we're excited that this will bring us the opportunity to modernize them. That includes small group instruction space and giving students extra places to work and do their work, and flexible classrooms that will be made larger or smaller according to our needs. Of course, the physical building and site improvements would also make schools more comfortable and safer for our students. We are talking about replacing end-of-life HVAC and roofing and improving the drainage, which would let us get more use out of some of our play areas and spaces. So as you listen tonight, I'd like you to keep in mind all of those things that would be coming to us in an approved bond referendum. But I also want to remind you that out of nearly 600 school districts in New Jersey, Moorestown is one of the few without a full-day tuition-free kindergarten. And the plans that you'll hear tonight can include making room for that potential. We can also know that it would create space for a combination of movement in our elementary schools, and moving 3rd grade to UES, which would become then a true elementary school with the 6th graders moving to WAMS. So you'll see that the architects did work with us and the engineers worked with us to listen to the community, and they reviewed the full details of the relocation of the bus depot. So we'll see that tonight. And we all agree that it needs to move to free up instructional space at our high school. And so before I have Steve get started, Mark, do you have anything you wanted to add to my opening? Okay, I am too. So Steve, we're ready. Thank you so much.
Hi, good evening. My name's Steve Schreier. I'm a principal architect from Freytech, Vise, Hopkins, Duthie. I'm here also on behalf of my partner, George Duthie, who could not be here tonight. I've presented a couple times to the board as well as to the public about this upcoming referendum that we've been planning. What I'm going to be touching upon tonight are the new applications that the board is going to be voting on for our office to submit to the New Jersey Department of Education. So without further ado, I'll get started. And I'm out of range. Okay, our agenda tonight is very short. State-approved project application overview, as well as our new project applications that I'm going to walk you through. And this includes a revised rehabilitation project scope and a revised turf field and bus depot design at the high school. And I'll go over the updated bond referendum timeline. Okay, so this outline of state-approved project applications are already applications that have been previously submitted to the Department of Education, reviewed, and approved. These 9 projects include the renovations at all buildings, as well as the additions at the middle school. So, the renovations at the elementary schools, we've taken a handful of classrooms and we're going to be altering them to accommodate expansion in the pre-K and kindergarten programs. But also at the same time, we're going to be moving 3rd grade from the elementary schools to the upper elementary school. But with that shift, we're going to be moving 6th grade to William Allen Middle School, the building where we are tonight. And this is in need of expansion. So we have 2 additions proposed. One is a 2-story, 24,500 square foot classroom addition, as well as an 11,000 square foot 1-story gymnasium addition. These additional facilities are going to be able to accommodate the 6th grade level that will be joining the middle school. At the high school, there's some minor renovations at the classroom wing adjacent to the cafeteria, which includes technology classrooms and the old maintenance garage spaces. Moving on to the traffic circulation and parking improvements at William Allen Middle School. So this previously approved project application covers some driveway alterations to help improve traffic circulation with morning drop-off and afternoon pickup between visitors, parents picking up students, and bus traffic. The new turf fields at the high school, so we have a few turf fields out at the corner, which you'll see in some of the future slides. Fields 3 and 4, if you're familiar, are the last 2 fields as you come to the intersection at Bridgeboro Road and Westfield Road. And then there's a field that's field 10 behind the high school. That would be a proposed turf field as well. Here's our list of new project applications which the board will be voting on for us to submit to the Department of Education. So these consist of various rehabilitation projects at all buildings, which I'll go over some of those scope items on the next slide. But this also includes some of the revisions, taking in a lot of feedback and input from the district as well as the board and the public with our site improvements that are proposed at the high school, similar to the middle school improvements that I touched upon on the last slide. This consists of driveway alterations, parking reconfigurations, as well as following that same trend at the middle school with improving drop-off and pickup. The turf field replacement and tennis court replacement at the high school. This is your turf field at the stadium, as well as the 8 tennis courts that are adjacent to stadium. Okay. So the various rehab projects, I just want to comment, there's really one big change between previous project applications and the project applications which will be submitted shortly. This is building-wide automatic temperature control system replacement for the HVAC controls at all school buildings. Previously, this was only select controllers, but with this upgrade, this will replace controllers at local units. It'll set a uniform standard across the district. It'll make servicing this equipment better for the maintenance personnel within the district, and also improve indoor air quality. Replacement of select obsolete HVAC equipment. Dr. McNeely had commented on this, and this is across all buildings. Under the safety and security category, we're proposing public address and clock messaging system replacements, except for at Mary Roberts. The system, we did a facility study earlier in 2024, and this was one system that was recently replaced, so it's not included. Fire alarm systems at all buildings except South Valley Elementary School. Similar to the public address at Mary Roberts, this system is relatively new and not at the end of its service life. We're also proposing fencing at the elementary schools, drainage improvements. The new emergency generator at Upper Elementary School. This is the only building that's proposed to receive a emergency generator. The other buildings which have emergency generators in place, they are not at the end of their service life. And then under the addressing aging infrastructure category, we're going to do select roof replacements, partial replacements, masonry repairs, window sill repairs, and various sealant repairs to help improve the building envelope. So our new project applications that relate to the turf fields, the bus depot, traffic circulation, and parking improvements at the high school. Under the turf field and athletics, so field number 1, which is adjacent to current bus depot at the high school, we're going to be removing this field. This is going to be the location of the proposed bus depot. Also adjacent to that, we're going to be replacing field number 2 with a new turf field. There's going to be a new freestanding concession stand building proposed, and the replacement at the turf field at the stadium and tennis courts is under this category. The bus depot, the relocation of the bus depot, as I mentioned, to playing field number 1, and this will have a fenced-in parking lot for security purposes. There's going to be a new freestanding bus maintenance garage building and a new staff parking lot. Similar traffic circulation and parking improvements with our driveway entrance that's proposed at Bridgeboro Road. This is going to be a new in and out, which you'll see on the next slide, which is going to help with circulation. Also, we're going to be covering some parking lot repairs and expansion to increase that number of parking spots at the middle school and high school campus. Okay, so here's a rendered plan showing what's proposed at Bridgeboro Road, being at the bottom of the screen, and at the far left of the screen, that's the Westfield Road. So working left to right, we have the 2 larger fields, which are fields 3 and 4. The smaller field would be a new field 2. All 3 of these fields would be proposed as turf fields with lighting. You can see on the far right of the screen, we have a large gray area. This is going to be our location, our proposed location for the bus depot. This is where field 1 is currently located. You can see a orangey red square at the top of the parking lot area. That's going to be our freestanding maintenance garage that's proposed. Just below that, the bus fueling stations will be relocated from their present location adjacent to MAC. The smaller rectangular orangey red structure is going to be a proposed concession stand, and then just above that is going to be the staff parking. And at the very far right of the screen, this is going to be our new entrance exit from Bridgeboro Road. This is currently in line where the present bus depot is located. So just to give you a better picture of what to anticipate, this is an aerial image with an overlay. Once again, those 3 turf fields working from Westfield Road along Bridgeboro Road, and then you get to the far right of the screen, and that's our bus depot, as well as the adjacent parking area and outbuildings that are proposed. And then at the very far right, that's that new entrance drive. This is currently where the bus depot is, and then we're going to have a new entrance driveway that's going to circulate around to the MAC and to the stadium. So, estimated project cost. What we're looking at across the elementary schools, including upper elementary school, is about $17 million worth of projects. This includes not just the new applications that we're looking to submit, but also the previously approved applications, including those renovations. At William Allen Middle School, we have $50 million proposed for its estimated project cost. Now, this includes our expansion of our 2 additions to accommodate the shift of 6th grade coming to the middle school, as well as some renovations throughout the building. At the high school, we're proposing $44 million, just under $45 million worth of projects. That includes all of our site work improvements, everything with the turf fields, the stadium, the tennis courts, interior renovations, and various rehab projects, including some HVAC upgrades. So we have about 17 project applications all in all. That's totaling $112.5 million. Our referendum timeline. So over the past year, we've done a lot of due diligence. We opened 2024 with a facility study where our office, as well as our consulting engineers who specialize in mechanical, electrical, plumbing, fire protection, we walked through all the buildings. We met with facilities personnel. We got to know all the building systems very well, and we established a major projects list. And then we focused that down to a priority list, projects that could be considered for a referendum. So we did have a previous submission that took place back in the fall. We did get state approval for various applications just after the new year. And now, after some further discussions, we've broken out some new project applications. So what we're proposing is, following tonight's board meeting, with the passing of this board resolution to submit these project applications for Department of Education review, is we would have everything ready to go this week. It's going to be about a 90-day review period. It could be earlier. So that puts us in the third week of June, when we anticipate a notification from the Department of Education to hear about potential state aid. But then within the next month, we would be required to provide a notification to the Clerk of Elections about 60 days, no later. So that's July 18th. And then between now and September, there's going to be further presentations, really focusing on what these projects look like and what projects are going to be considered for those questions that will be established. And then we're looking at a September 16th public vote. That's the referendum. And then following the referendum, if it's successful, we would start right away with design and construction, October 2025 through project completion for all projects that are considered. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Can you elaborate on the process for PEC letters and what has already been submitted and reviewed by the state? Do those amounts remain? Do we have to submit those back to the state? What's that process look like?
So there's previous applications that were submitted and approved. We did look through those applications to see if there's any revisions that are necessary. We are comfortable with the numbers that are within those applications, so there's no changes that are necessary for those 9 applications. You're welcome. Correct.
Thanks, Steve. Could you go back to the slide, the timeline slide? I think it was 1 or 2 before this one. Right, it was just 1, if you go forward. Yeah, that one. And this is very helpful because it certainly shows where we are now. There's some things I wanted to highlight that happened before. So even before the follow due diligence process and organize and compile data, that's noted as the first couple of steps in the timeline. Because, as I'm sure lots of people know, this has been years and years in the making. There was a bond referendum proposed in 2019 that had shared some of the aspects of this bond referendum, and the board and administration took a lot of the data and information learned from that process and used it in connection with this current proposal. I want to say it was about a year ago. It was over a year ago that we started talking publicly about the fact that we thought that this was an important referendum for the community. And we pushed out surveys to all of our stakeholders through email, social media. I think there was an advertisement in Moorestown Sun, and got a lot of great feedback from the community about a year ago. And we took all that feedback. A lot of it was similar to what we'd heard from the first referendum. Some of it was different. And we presented that in one of our board meetings, again, probably about a year ago, April or May. Steve and his team provided a presentation very similar to this one in July over the summer, where we laid out what these projects are going to look like. And that led to us approving the first round of applications that we had submitted. And obviously, we got a lot of feedback on one aspect of the bus depot as a result of those applications. And administration and the board certainly took those comments into consideration as we decided what to do next. And so that is a very high-level snapshot of kind of where we are and how we got here. And I think it is, the aspects of this, to me, that are really important is the addition at Whams, which is 13 rooms. It's a big addition. It is a large addition to accommodate the movement of a full grade of students to move over there. And freeing up space, what that does is that frees up space in our lower elementary buildings. As Dr. McNeely had said in her opening comments, the need is now. There is no doubt that the need will be amplified in years to come. There's no doubt. I think if you drive around town, you see there is construction. There is a apartment or condominium. There's housing going up across the street from the UES at the mall. There's 2 different projects, and there's various other projects that are in different phases of development. And so the need is now, but it is absolutely going to be critical that we have more space in our school, throughout our school district in years to come. And I think this plan appropriately addresses that need, that current need, and that future need. It's a big number, right? That number is big. And we will get some state funding for it, for costs that are eligible for reimbursement. And that's some of the information that we've received. Some of that, and then we're going to get some more. And so the state will be kicking in a portion of those costs. We don't have the final numbers yet, and we likely won't for several months. And that is what is going to be one of the important factors that the board considers when it determines which pieces of this project are going to be presented to the public for a vote. Is it going to be all of it? Is it going to be in one question? Is it going to be in 2 questions? Because the way the bond referendum work, capital bond referenda, is we can break the projects into multiple questions, right? Where, we can put the bulk of it in question 1, and then other things in questions 2 or 3 or 4, et cetera. And obviously, the passage of question 2 is contingent on the passage of question 1. 3 is contingent on the passage of the previous 2. So, in any event, that is where we are, and the board is now going to be tasked with determining the framework that we want to put this out for a public vote. It's going to take some time, and I know we say that a lot, but it does. These are complicated projects, it's a complicated process with some regulatory schemes that we have to comply with, and so we thank everybody for their patience as we navigate through it, and we thank the community for the feedback that we've received so far, and look forward to continuing to let everybody know where things stand and what to expect. So with that, are there any other comments or questions? Claudine?
Yeah, thank you. Can you put the picture of the new bus depot, the real-life looking
aerial
one,
shot?
not the
Yeah.
architect version?
Yep. Yep, that one.
I just, when this was presented to us, I just want to clarify for the public at least, our moving the bus depot here to expand utilization and improvements in the high school, those fields have to be turfed in order to meet the environmental needs to move the bus depot there. That was my understanding in the presentation, that it's necessary to turf. It's not a want, it's a need as it relates to the bus depot's new location.
Okay. Well, a few factors. We're taking one field offline, and the campus at the middle school and the high school is very limited with space. So when you propose a turf field, they're going to be more playable in the sense that they don't need time to rest as a natural grass field, which is going to be important losing one playing field. So we're going to be able to provide 3 fields that are proposed as turf and that will be readily used. Whether they're going to be multi-sports is something that could be considered or designed further. But to touch upon the flood hazard concerns, there is a study that's going to have to take place. It's a very lengthy study. Our civil engineering consultant already did a preliminary analysis, and the woods that are located just behind the fields. There's a waterway that you might be familiar with that travels through and across Westfield Road. So she was able to check flood hazard maps with DEP. There's no delineation that's established along that area. So there's going to be a lot of survey, a hydrology study that will take place, and they're going to have to make an agency submission to the Department of Environmental Protection. And that's really going to consider if these areas are in a flood hazard area and what can be proposed.
And Claudine, I can elaborate on that a little bit as well. On the first point that Steve made, we have, reviewed this against our current athletic schedules to make sure we don't have an impact to the athletic schedules that we run. And to the second point of flood map, you cannot, when you do construction to this space, you cannot displace flood water. So if you think about it of having a filled bathtub and then you put a block of ice in that bathtub and it overflows, you cannot do that. So what this helps do is, because turf has a drainage system under it, it helps us handle that displacement of that flood water. So it actually helps resolve that problem.
I was going to ask about this too, and a lot of that's already been clarified, so thanks, Steve. But I understand it's actually even more complex than that, because the desire to put a building out there too changes some of these parameters as well, as I understand it, right?
That's
specifically the bus maintenance facility, so that we can get that out of the high school, putting it in this space. Also, can you talk to the challenges that presents with dealing with the wetlands, with dealing with the displacement that Mr. Heiser talked about? Can you add some
Sure.
color to that, please?
Yeah, when you throw buildings into it, it's a different ballgame, because once we establish what the base flood elevation is, we're going to have to be above that base flood elevation. And it's, depending on which approach is used, it could be anywhere from 2 to 3 feet above that line.
Right. So yeah, obviously presents a lot of complexity, because, just to be fair, it was great that Mr. Villanueva did a great summation of kind of the evolution of this. But obviously, we did look at this before, and this complexity kind of had us seeking other solutions. Those other solutions, we've decided to move away from those. And so coming back here obviously adds a lot of complexity here. Oh, and just one other point too, because I think it bears emphasis. I appreciate, Mark, that you mentioned, adding the space here, the classroom space, but there's additional learning space that we need to add here, and that's in the form of a new full-size gym as well. Because, while this gym supported, our time here as middle schoolers, it was tight then, and adding another 300 or so students here, we're almost required to put in a new gym. Would you say?
Yes, yeah, I would agree. There's going to be some core spaces that are going to be necessary to meet that additional grade level, as well as looking at the gymnasium space and seeing how class periods are going to work to accommodate those additional students.
Okay. And then I guess lastly, while we're still on it, the time frame for this DEP study, can you talk about how that affects our ability to complete this project and utilize that space?
So there's going to be various agency submissions, the additions at the middle school, which we would foresee being the first projects that we want to start. There's going to be an agency submission with that, and that may or may not trigger the need for that study. But what's proposed at what you see on screen with the bus depot, that could trigger that as well. But there's going to have to be a balance and a sequence of how these projects are ordered and how we work within the time frame of the reviewing agency. So yes, we would plan to start the additions first and get a submission to them as soon as possible to see what kind of time frame that we're going to be up against. But there is a lengthy survey that will have to take place.
And our civil engineer is preliminarily estimating that will be about 18 months of a process to to conduct that survey. Some of that work we can start as soon as possible to have really hit the ground running, that if we have that September approval, we'll be able to pretty much come right out of the gates sprinting on it. But our estimate is about 18 months to conduct that survey.
And on top of that, within those 18 months, there's going to be design of the additions at this building that needs to take place, and that takes time too. That could take 8 to 9 months between all the phases of design and working with the district and getting input from the necessary personnel.
Okay, so fair to say the totals we saw up there were affected by this change, the time frames affected by the change, and then kind of the dependency is also affected with the relationship of all the projects, bringing more traffic to the campus by adding the additions here at WAMS, then needing to make these changes here, being able to have the extracurricular space at the high school. So those are a lot of the factors. I just want to understand, obviously we understand, but make sure the public understands, and we'll have to reemphasize this, that moving the bus depot here, while it's the best solution we have now, it didn't come without, I guess, trade-offs.
Right.
There will
be options to the renovations at the high school as well as the other site improvements. They could be staggered after the site improvements at the middle school. Because when that move would take place, moving the bus maintenance garage, we would have to have a new building in place first.
Sure, that's right. So that puts the high school renovations at the end.
Yeah, that would put that towards the back end.
Yeah, and our initial applications, we did obviously include some of the turf fields across, I believe, 3 or 4 different applications originally. Going with this type of a plan, it does impact our ability to consider those applications kind of separately versus if it has to be part of the core question because of the work that's impactful to this site. And one thing that I did want to elaborate on as well, Mr. Villanueva, you mentioned about the 2019 failed referendum and kind of where we are today. The 2019 failed referendum was some expansion and some necessary HVAC work right at that immediate time. We're in a completely different position in 2025 than we were in 2019. Namely, obviously, we're 6 years later, and we're heading into 2029 when debt comes off of our books. So one of the things that we did was we did a full facilities assessment to really look at what debt is rolling off of our books in 2029 to determine what's in good shape, what's in bad shape, and what needs to be considered now versus what can wait till a referendum, or maybe even a 5 to 10 year plan thereafter. So a lot of work has been done to evaluate the debt that is coming off in 2029 and the projects that were done at that point in time when that debt was originally structured. The way debt is structured is you typically structure it over the useful life of whatever you're purchasing. So if it's an HVAC unit, it might be a 20-year useful life. So whatever we put in those debt issuances, theoretically, is at the end of its useful life, but we did evaluate whether or not that's the case.
James, what year was our last successful referendum or ballpark? It's been 10 years. It's been
Yeah, I believe it was 2012.
so over 10.
Mhm.
Okay, so it puts in perspective. I think the size of this one, right? That it's been so long.
Sure.
And I think another thing that's helpful for me is I've heard you guys talk before about this being one of the only other ways, or the only other way, we can get money from the state,
That's correct.
right?
That's correct. Yeah, it's a mechanism to bring some of those dollars back to Moorestown.
So in terms of the state aid that we were awarded in January for those particular projects, is there ever a time when that goes away? Like, do we have a year or 2 years, or is it just we got awarded it and that's it and we keep it?
I believe, I don't have the duration right off the top of my head, so I don't want you to hold me to it. But I believe the final eligible costs are good for at least 12 months, could be 18 months. I can definitely follow up with that duration.
Anyone else? Okay, thank you, Steve, very
Mhm.
much.
Thank you.
I just want to say that we look forward to working with the public. I know everyone would like to know what are the next steps, how are we moving forward, and when will you hear even more about the projects and how the board is deliberating. And so there is now an opportunity for us to start getting the word out. We'll be at book fairs, community events, continuing to hold meetings whenever possible. In the meantime, I'd like to send you to our website that is always updated and current, and you just go to mtps.com and click on referendum, and you'll get all of our presentations and videos and the most recent information there. So I want to thank Steve for coming out tonight and giving us a new scope and for the thoughtful questions of our board. We can see now that they'll begin to deliberate and work in the best interests of our students and our taxpayers. So thank you, everyone.
Okay. We are now to our first public comment section. This is for comments that relate to items on the agenda that the board is voting on, and that includes the comments about the referendum presentation that we just heard. There is a relatively full audience tonight, so I would ask that you keep your comments to 3 minutes, please, and limit them to items that are on the agenda. A second public comment section is available after the board votes on the business that's on the agenda tonight. So if you'd like to make a public comment, now is the time to do so. You could state your name and address before making your comment. The floor will be yours once we make a motion to open public comment. Second. Anyone? All in favor? Thank you. So if there's a public comment on agenda items, please take the microphone.
Hi, Aisha Hassan, 8 Zelkova Run. When you make these new fields, where will parking be for parents and people who want to see the kids play?
What we'll do is we'll take all the public comments and then we'll address them after we close. But thanks, Steve, for popping up.
Thank you, Steve.
Hi, this is very high for me. Amy Carney, 47 Brooks Road. Yeah, I don't want to make it fall. I just wondering when all of the work will be done. If you have estimates, assuming the financing comes through, anticipated and the referendum is successful, based on everything that you're going to ask, when everything would be completed. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right, could I get a motion to close public comment? All in favor? All right. Steve, I saw you pop up. So if you're able to answer the question regarding parking as well as timelines.
Sure.
That would be helpful.
So regarding parking, currently at both the middle school and high school campus, there's 716 parking spaces. And what's proposed, we'd be increasing that at least 100 to 120. There's still going to be further design, but we're going to be increasing parking. So where you're going to see that is some reconfiguration of the existing lot at the high school that to help accommodate our new traffic patterns. There's also going to be where the bus depot currently is located. That's going to be a new lot. That's going to be for students and staff. And then also the staff lot that is proposed adjacent to bus depot next to the turf fields, that could be used as a multi-type parking area, whether it's parking for night events, for athletics, or just the staff parking during the day. Also, what's being proposed behind the high school, between the middle school, is a new parking lot, and that's going to be for additional parking needed for the middle school, because bringing another grade level, we're going to have more staff at that building. So, and it's going to help alleviate some of the stress and congestion around the administration offices.
Steve, before you go on, could we bring back up the picture of the fields? Because I
Okay.
want to ask a clarifying question. The fields. So, as I understand it, and you just pointed out that new lot there, the bus depot lot, the adjacent staff parking lot would be available for people using these fields during non-school hours, right? But, yeah, that area right there, right? And how many spots is that?
If we go back one slide, it may have a count.
Magnifying glass.
Eye chart. Okay, so it'll be about 50 parking spots. And then my understanding was that through recommendations from your team, also requests from Moorestown Police Department, the parking along Bridgeboro Road, where people are just kind of pulling in, and parking along Westfield Road, that would be eliminated, correct?
Right, we would try to eliminate that, you know, whether that means providing signage or fencing along Bridgeboro Road to prohibit that, that's something that could be considered.
And we're having conversations with the county about that, because there are safety concerns related to, you know, right along that pathway is our cross-country trail, and it's a pretty busy road. It does have a little bit of a berm there, but there's definitely some options that we have available to us there.
And then the other question related to timing of when the project is done. Do we have any estimates on that?
Right, yeah, so we would be looking at construction starting for the additions at the middle school and at the beginning of 2026. So we could look at a completed addition renovated middle school for the start of the 2028-2029 school year. But that will not be the completion of all work that's proposed. If all work is approved, the renovations at the elementary schools would take place following the addition at the middle school. So that could take about another year. We would try to focus that work towards the summer when these schools are least occupied. And then if we'll have to work a little bit more closely with staff to determine what could be used as swing space.
Overall, we're looking at about a 3-year project.
Okay. Thank you. All right, thanks, Steve.
You're welcome.
All right. Let's move on to the business of the board. Can I please get a motion to approve items 1 to 5 in Article 8 of the agenda, please?
Second.
Any comments or questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Any noes or abstentions? Thank you. Article 9, recommendations of the superintendent. Can I please get a motion for approval of item A, which is a resolution authorizing the submission of referendum project documents to the NJDOE? Any comments or questions? Roll call vote, please.
Ms. Arcara Burns? Yes. Ms. Aurora? Yes. Mrs. Barnes? Yes. Mrs. Fowles Macaluso? Dr. Myatt? Yes. Mrs. Miller? Yes. Mrs. Morano? Yes. Mr. Weeks?
Yes.
Mr. Villanueva?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next is item B, the 2024 to 2025 MOA, live streaming MOA, which is with the Moorestown Police Department. Could I please get a motion for approval of that? Second? Any comments or questions? All in favor? Noes or abstentions? Thank you. Letter C, could I get a motion for approval of items 1 and 2 included in that section? comments or questions? All in favor? Any noes or abstentions? Thank you. All right, next up is finance and business. And James, I think you're going to give us the budget presentation now. So as part of our items to vote on include the budget, which will be submitted to the county for approval if it passes this evening, and Mr. Heiser is going to give us an update that builds upon the budget workshop that we had a couple weeks ago.
Good evening, everyone. I get to start off before Mr. Heiser on our budget presentation tonight. So we'll be going over a bunch of different aspects of the budget in a very quick format for tonight. So who has the slides, Jeff? Is it? I'm ready for the next one, Colleen. The agenda for tonight is for us to go over our goals that we used when working through our budget, the budget development process in general. We'll also do a few budget highlights for you, review revenues, tax levy, state aid and fund balance, the appropriations, such as salaries, benefits, and capital outlay. We'll talk about budget adjustments, budget introduction, and impact. So you can go back to that goal slide. It's okay, I was ready. Tonight, the budget has 3 goals for us. We faced some challenging times this year, very challenging times, and we aren't alone in those challenging times for this budget. And so we had different goals than we would typically have in a budget year. We had goals that were built around making sure we preserved student programs, that we optimized our human resources the best we could with the human resources that we have and the physical resources that we had to get the greatest impact for our students. And then finally, in goal 3, we worked on continuing to strengthen our student learning through the supports that we have, updated curriculum, and targeted professional development, all of the things that make Moorestown so absolutely wonderful in academics. That's okay. The budget calendar, I won't read it all to you, but I wanted to highlight where we are now. So last week, we presented the work and how it would continue throughout the district. We had a budget workshop to discuss the draft. We went through a very detailed process, and that was actually available online as well. And so then during this past week, we worked to continue to get the balance where we needed it to be, to meet with stakeholders, to have discussions that needed to happen to get us where we are tonight, which is the budget introduction and approval to submit this budget to the county. And then you'll see following tonight's presentation, the budget will be submitted to the county for review. And then April 29th, we'll have a budget adoption and a public hearing. Yeah, go back one slide, please. Okay, Dr. Benton is going to go over the budget highlights for curriculum and instruction.
Good evening. So just a couple of highlights from curriculum instruction. Our focus this year was really on our K-5 math adoption. We have been in a pilot for the last 2 years, and so we've already adopted grades 6 through 8 of our math adoption, and this year we're in phase 2 and we're adopting K through 5. So you will see that not only are we purchasing the resources, the student resources for that, our teachers are already working with their resources this year, but we will do all the curriculum writing of those curricula for K to 5, as well as we are going to be doing updates to our grades 6, 7 accelerated and enriched math and our pre-algebra courses. Our other 2 areas of focus were new courses at the high school, specifically in data science and our math, as well as visual and performing arts. We're going to be doing writing revisions to our grades 9 through 12 English courses, and then we will also be doing gifted and talented programming revisions as our focus areas for this year. In our professional development, we continue to invest in our multi-tiered systems of support, which include both intervention support, behavioral supports, as well as enrichment supports. We're also continuing to support our multilingual learners. And again, we're focusing on revisions and training for our gifted and talented teaching and learning. You can go to the next slide, please. Just a few more highlights in terms of our math program that we are adopting. We will be adopting HMH into math in grades K through 5. This is a 6-year package for us that supports math instruction across 6th grade levels. It builds content and skills knowledge using math routines during small group and partner work. And just one note, we also, 2 years ago, adopted HMH into reading. So this is a partner program and focuses on many of the same routines for learning for our students. And so what we will see is that the focus on small group instruction, collaboration, having students discussing the learning that they are doing are going to be similar between our ELA programs as well as our math programs. Additionally, as I talked about, the professional development for this implementation is included as part of this, which will include both the publisher training for implementation, but also our pilot team, our staff that has been working and living within this program will be helping to implement this program across all 6th grade levels for over 150 staff members that are teaching in those grades. And additionally, as I said, we'll be doing the summer curriculum writing for those 6 courses.
Thank you, Dr. Benton. I see a lot of familiar faces here. I'm James Heiser. I see some that I do not recognize. I'm James Heiser. I'm the business administrator here. I'm going to go through some of the technology highlights as well as some of our operational budget highlights, and then I'm going to turn it back to Dr. McNeely to go through some of our human resource highlights, and then from there I will take it and go through our actual budget. Some of our technology highlights include maintenance of our one-to-one program. These are one-to-one devices in all of our students' hands. You can see 1 grade worth of student devices will be replaced from 2020, and replacement of the 6th gen iPads that are no longer supported with the latest operating system. Replacement of our staff laptops, we started that process in our prior year, and we split that across 2 different budget cycles, so we are in year 2 of that 6-year cycle. Our technology infrastructure, replacing some of our end-of-life primary firewalls, as well as some network switches. Now, these are good things because we actually are eligible for what's called E-rate funding, where it's bringing in federal dollars to attach to this. So it's not dollar for dollar that we pay on this. So these are good things, and obviously cybersecurity insurance is a challenge to get in today's market, but this keeps us where we need to be, making sure we can get that insurance and making sure that our deductible isn't too high. Some security camera additions and replacements, and an outside audit of our security controls. Colleen, can you go to the next slide? Some of our operational highlights are Baker HVAC replacement. So this was about 2 years ago, we applied for what's called a ROD grant opportunity with the state of New Jersey. The state is funding 40% of that project, with the remaining balance coming out of our capital reserve fund. It's being stretched across multiple years because the lead time on HVAC equipment is a challenge, and we hit a couple of delays with state submissions on this. Namely, we had to have a change order because we adjusted a few units that we were doing in that, so it's actually going to be stretched across 2 years. Control software upgrades. These are some upgrades to our current control system, our automated temperature controls that allow us to have a good indoor air quality, as well as give us the capability to maintain our controls and our temperature. On a further slide, you'll see some of our concerns and some of the issues in this budget cycle, namely around electric costs moving forward. So this is an important upgrade to make sure we can balance our systems remotely. Chiller repairs and upgrades. We have a couple of chillers at our high school that have a few issues currently that we're working through. They are not end of life, so we're not replacing those units, but we do have some core critical components on those units that have to be replaced. through our capital outlay budget. That's all coming out of our capital reserve fund balance, so it does not have a direct dollar-for-dollar impact on our budget. Security upgrades, software and hardware to fully integrate our digital devices in the district with automated messaging, door lock controls, and our camera system. School-wide budgetary and personnel system, so we're in year 3 of implementing that system, focused on streamlined procedures and accuracy. Transportation, I believe Mr. Weeks at our Finance and Operations Committee, we talked about this. Our contracts, the renewal percent that the state gives us was 3.57%. It's a good thing because all of our contracts were renewed. All of our contractors chose to renew at that 3.57%. So that's good, because typically when they don't renew and you have to put it back out to bid, you open it up and it's much higher than that 3.57%. It's still a challenge nonetheless, because when you can only go up by 2% on your levy, you have something that you have to backfill for that additional 1.57%, so it's a challenge. We reviewed our driver salaries to make sure we're still remaining competitive with surrounding districts and companies. We did put an allotment in for additional cameras on our buses that do not have cameras currently. And facilities custodial maintenance, our routine maintenance for upkeep of facilities, and as Mr. Weeks indicated as well, right now we have a bid out for our custodial contract for night cleaning. We will be in year 1 of that contract. That bid will be opened up in April. Colleen, can you go to the next slide? I'll turn it over to Dr. McNeely at this point.
For my section, I just wanted to remind you of those goals we stated in the beginning. And I highlighted the pieces that are particularly relevant to my next slides, which will talk about our staffing and human resources. So we remember that in Goal 1, our goal was to retain staff and preserve student programs to make sure that we continue to offer the opportunities that we have, to maximize our efficiency by making sure that we were putting everyone in the best place possible to make the best educational impact. And then finally, to strengthen our student learning through effective support systems that either we have in place or we needed to add to make sure our students and our staff felt supported in doing what they do best, so teaching and learning. So the next slide is, I'm ready for the next slide. And I wanted to talk with you a little bit about how we got to the human resource decisions we did. Of course, like I said, it follows goals 1 through 3. But we worked with using projections and data-informed decisions. We asked ourselves questions like, where do we see opportunities for growth and progress district-wide? Despite the difficult budget year, we always know that there's possibility for growth and progress. Additionally, we wanted to know, where did we need more support for our students? We had an opportunity to take a look at our staffing and our human resources and see where we needed some work. We also looked at, where can we become more efficient in our scheduling process? What would that mean, and what did the data point us to? And then finally, which positions must be filled to keep our high level of excellence in education? So all questions that we needed to ask ourselves before we looked at the exact staffing needs. So this year we had an opportunity because we had 14 retirements of certificated staff members and 3 support staff members retired. So when we took a look at that, we knew that we could propose 9 certificated staff members as filling those positions, 1 support staff member, and then a non-affiliated staff increase of 2%. Now let me explain that a little bit. That means that very typically, non-affiliated staff, that's those of us in the board office, the cabinet, and everyone working in the board office. Those are the non-affiliated members. They aren't a member of the MEA or the MA. And they are going to be taking 2% increases, where they typically follow raises of the MA, or the Moorestown Administrators Association. So this means that they're going to a 2, when most of the time they would be at a 3% raise to help us get to where we needed to go with this budget. Additionally, we were able to add 2 positions to meet our goal for number 3, and that would be to add a tech teacher in the K-3 building, giving each building a K-3 tech teacher. And then we would add a school nurse to the high school who would also work with us on district-wide coverage. So despite the challenging budget year, we were able to take a look at our staffing, determine where we could become most efficient, and still add positions that worked with our support team. Mr. Heiser is going to take it away with all the numbers now.
Thank you, Dr. McNeely. So some of the significant challenges to the 25-26 budget process are simply right here on this slide. So our tax levy increase by 2%. We can go up to 2% in any given year with certain variations to that, which are allowable adjustments through bank cap. That is a 2% increase there, 1.4 million. Our state aid increase came in at 375,000 roughly. I'm going to show you a future slide. While that's good, while we like seeing additional state aid, it's also not good because the state stepped away from fully funding the funding formula this year. So you can see 1.8 million of revenue increases from our two primary revenue providers. Our health benefit increase was $2.2 million, 13.4%. Our other insurance increases came out to $63,000, which was a 6%. Electricity increase was $110,000, and CPI increase on the transportation contracts was $43,000. So before we even considered anything else, our salary obligations, our supplies, our department budgets, we had to find $600,000 right off of the bat before we even considered an additional item. So it was a significant challenge to this budget season for sure. Our revenue sources. So our primary revenue source is our local tax levy. You saw previously that we had a 2% levy increase in. We have increased that based off of an allowable adjustment to the levy, which was utilizing a health care adjustment. That's a state calculated formula that says your health care adjustment, your health care benefits have exceeded certain levels, and you are allowed to go over 2% for those amounts. State aid, we initially budgeted flat. The state released a memo saying expect up to a 3% decrease. That kind of sounded the alarm to a lot of districts because, number one, we've never received a memo saying expect a decrease in our state aid. So it was concerning. The state later came out and they released the funding, and the concern about it was the state stepped away from the funding formula with a minimum loss to districts that lost state funding and a maximum gain to districts that received additional state funding. And I have a further slide that will show that and illustrate that. Budgeted fund balance. So budgeted fund balance is required. So when we have budgeted fund balance, when we have excess surplus, we have to budget that amount in the subsequent budget plus allowable adjustments to our free general fund excess balances projected as of June 30th. So that's a mouthful, but that's a calculated formula from our prior year audit that has to come in as a revenue source to help balance a future year's budget. Our other revenue sources, they consist primarily of tuition, extraordinary aid, facility rentals, parking, pay to participate fees, shared services. So we have an increase expected on that line. So this is a 5-year look of our tax levy history, going back to 21-22, going forward to 25-26. So you can see there's two different funds that we levy taxes for. Our general fund, which pays for everything. It pays to educate our students. It pays to keep the lights on. It pays for salaries. It pays for everything we do to instruct our students. Our debt service fund is previously approved referendums. It's the money that we have to levy to pay back the debt associated with those referendums that were previously approved. You'll see at a future slide, we've had some opportunity to reduce our debt service fund impact through refunding opportunities. Anytime that those come up, those are a great thing. It's the same process that you might take on your home when you refinance a mortgage. So our general fund levy for this upcoming 25-26 budget cycle right now is a little over $73.5 million, which represents a 2.84% increase. Again, we're over 2% because we're allowed to use that healthcare adjustment. Our debt service fund represents a 2% decrease. That's because of refinancing opportunities that we've had in the past. So our overall levy change is 2.56%. We've had an increase in our taxable ratables, which is a good thing. It means that we've had an increase to the tax base in Moorestown. So it's more homes, more businesses that can pay that tax. So ultimately, the average tax impact to the average assessed home is lower than what it otherwise would have been. It's a great thing when your ratables are going up. So our overall effective tax rate is a 1.87% increase. That does include bank cap. So this is a slide that I've had over the last 7 years tracking our state aid. To summarize, 7 years ago, the state introduced legislation S2 that was designed to take money away from overfunded districts and provide it to underfunded districts. The state was not following their funding formula. If they followed their funding formula, they would have followed that green line the entire time. Instead, the blue line is what the state actually provided to districts. So S2 legislation was designed to balance the playing field a little bit. And it did that. It had a 7-year phase-in. You can see last year was the first year we were fully funded by the formula. We have a $375,000 increase to state aid this year. That's great. That's helpful. However, our uncapped aid should have been $7.9 million. So we're underfunded again by $1.2 million. We should have received another $1.2 million by the state funding formula if the state followed that formula. They followed the formula, but then they imposed 3% minimum loss and a 6% maximum gain. We received the 6%, which was the $375,000. Next slide, please. Extraordinary aid. Extraordinary aid is a big component of our budget process. Extraordinary aid, for those that aren't aware, it is a grant opportunity project that helps pay for certain extraordinary costs to educate some of our neediest population. So some of the things that might go into that we're receiving reimbursement on, maybe it's a 1-1 paraprofessional for a student, maybe it's a 1-1 nurse, maybe it's a student that might require an extended school year. Those are all items that we can put into an extraordinary aid application. Over the last few years, that third line from the top is the amount of revenue that we've budgeted over the last 6-7 years. Starting at $600,000, and you can see in the 25-26 budget, we have a little over $1.5 million budgeted as revenue for extraordinary aid. That's gone up over the years. You can obviously see that. It's more than double. Our state budget for extraordinary aid is that bottom line. $275 million, $400 million, $420 million for the last 5 years. We did confirm 25-26, the state put in $420 million again. While that might sound like a lot of money, it's not going as far as what it should. If you look at that first line, those are the total costs that we have had applied for. So in 1920, it was roughly $6 million. In 23-24, it was $7.5 million. The state isn't maintaining the budget that's maintained at the level of cost that districts are seeing. So if you look at the second line from the bottom, the actual percentage awarded of eligible cost, you can see in that 1920 year it was 62.5%. And then it went to 90%. That's great. The state almost fully funded extraordinary aid by the statute it's designed to do. That's fantastic. That's what that bump of $125 million did. And then the next year they put $20 million in, but they fell down 84%. Then the next year they put the same amount in, and then they fell down 72%, and then 61%. So you can see that the state's not keeping up with the increased cost. So what we did to do an estimate to increase this line is we took our prior 3 years and budgeted at 75%. It's a reimbursement grant. We have to spend the money first to get it. So this, at $1.5 million, this is fiscally conservative, but it is a substantial increase on our revenue budget for extraordinary aid. Revenues from our other sources. So our other sources primarily consist of tuition, which you can see is relatively flat. Our facility rentals, which is also relatively flat. Other governments, you can see that that has a bit of an uptick there. That's the extraordinary aid amount that's causing that uptick. And then other sources, you can see quite a bit of an uptick from 2024 to our 2026 budget. That's primarily driven by SHIF and JIF dividends, which I'll explain in just a second. Apparently, here's that second. So SHIF stands for School Health Insurance Fund. It's a combined fund of over 100 districts that combine our losses and our successes together to get the best insurance costs that we possibly can on health. When it has successful years, they release what's called dividends. This $2.5 million is what we have in our dividend balance. In 24-25, we budgeted a $900,000 withdrawal from that dividend balance. In 25-26, we were budgeting a $1.1 million withdrawal from that balance. So we'll have $573,000 remaining moving forward. You can see by that bullet there at the bottom, the SHIF Finance Committee is not recommending a distribution of dividends for this year at this time. And then on the JIF side, JIF stands for Joint Insurance Fund. That's who we purchase our general lines of insurance from, our workers' comp, our auto insurance, those types of insurances. We have $475,000 in with them, and we have a 25-26 withdrawal of $179,000. So we'll have a remaining balance of $298,000. Those remaining balances are critical, and it's crucial. We're choosing not to withdraw all of that money and draw that down to zero because the current state of healthcare, last year we saw a 10.18% increase. This year we saw a 13.4% increase. There are certain economic factors that are outside of even Moorestown that are driving that. So we do have future concerns about large increases in future years that those amounts of money could be helpful to offset. On the appropriation side of our budget, so we'll be in year 1 of 3 with our MEA contract. We'll be in year 3 of 3 with our administrator's contract. I've already spoken about our general lines of insurance and our healthcare insurance. We originally anticipated 10%, but we got a 13.4%, and then 6% on our general lines of insurance. Instructional supplies and materials, that's our school budgets primarily, as well as our department budgets consisting of our curriculum department, technology department, facilities, and transportation. I already spoke about our capital outlay budget and what's included in that. That's the Baker HVAC project, as well as the 2 other items. So consumer price index, so that's where we can see that 3.57% increase that the state approved for the CPI for next budget cycle. The next view is February 12th, New Jersey BPU, Board of Public Utilities, opened up bids from PJM related to supply costs for next year. Those bids were not good. They were not favorable. You can see we are a PSE&G customer. You can see a 17.24% increase expected on electricity. This is not something specific to Moorestown. This is something that homeowners will also feel moving forward. PJM stands for Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Maryland. They supply electric to 13 states. You know, some of the market impact on this is there's been a reduction in the amount of supply provided, namely some maybe coal-fired plants or nuclear plants taken offline in lieu of potentially doing wind or solar projects that just have not been done as of yet. On top of that, AI is having a substantial impact on this, causing more demand on the market and from an economic sense, when supply and demand are kind of out of balance there, this is what it equates to. This shows how we actually spend the money. This is from our actual 23-24 audit, and again, this is where that excess surplus, that budgeted fund balance number ultimately comes from. About roughly 83-85% of our budget is from our salaries and our benefits, and you can see tuition, transportation's 4%, supplies are 2%. Our energy, again, is 1%, but it's still an $857,000 number, in which we expect a $110,000 increase next year. Our maintenance budget's 7%, and other, which consists of some memberships, professional fees, things of that nature, at 1%. So this is the current status of our budget. You can see this is the revenue side. Our tax levy is our primary source of our revenue. You can see a 2.84% budgeted there. State aid is at 6%. You can see the $557,000 increase from extraordinary aid. Our other sources, which we saw on that previous slide, are tuition, interest, pay to participate, rentals, miscellaneous, and revenue generation. The main item there is our miscellaneous number. That includes our SHIF and JIF dividends that we expect. Special Education Medicaid Initiative, this is state funded, and the state reduced this substantially for this budget cycle. There's a lot of conversations going on about this. If you have over 40 eligible students, you must participate in this by statute. There's a lot of conversations about, is it possible to increase that, because that's a little return for a lot of work. That's about $75,000 worth of work that goes into that on a normal year, with $50,000 of revenue. Reducing it down to $5,000, it just doesn't make sense. Withdrawal from reserves, $2.8 million from our capital reserve. That will go towards our capital outlay projects, and our maintenance reserve at $200,000, and then you see our budgeted fund balance number there at the bottom. Appropriations, our salaries on line 1 there at $53 million. Our benefits, the substantial number there is our healthcare benefits, which is roughly $2.2 million, 2.149, 13.75% increase. Our retirement payout, that's contractually agreed upon, and our workers' compensation, which was a 6% increase that we ultimately received. From there, we have our professional fees. This is primarily driven by fees associated with our child study team. So one thing you'll notice is our student tuition line, which is about 2 lines below that, is relatively flat, a 1.12% increase. When we keep students in district, that is a great thing. Sometimes there's a cost to doing that, and that's typically seen in our professional fee line. Some of our purchase services, that's primarily driven by our transportation department. So you can see a 3.12% increase on that line. The CPI renewal was 3.57, so we took a look at some other things outside of those contractual renewals to find a way to lower that 3.57 number. Student tuition, we just talked about that. Our professional development budget, action item number 1 under our budget is our travel and expense resolution. That is required. That's at that $168,000 number. Our supplies, that's our department level supply budgets. That's our building level supply budget. That's also our electricity cost. So our electricity cost was budgeted at $110,000, and you can see that that increase is less than $110,000 because we reprioritize some of our department building-based budgets. Other line, that's mainly our memberships, our school board membership, as well as some of our professional organization memberships, and our capital outlay budget. And then at the bottom, you can see that we have a balanced budget. Tax impact. So this is at 2% plus utilization of $600,000 in bank cap. So you can see we're going up on our general fund levy by 2.84%, and we're going down on our debt service levy by 1.84% for a net of 2.56%. On the average household of $461,000, that's an $86 annual impact to the average home, or a monthly impact of $7.19. Debt service, it's always good to be mindful of your debt service, especially as we come up on a referendum. Again, one of the things that I mentioned earlier, we took a look at all of our debt service and took a hard look at what we purchased in these debt issuances and did a full facilities assessment to see what kind of condition it is in currently. You can see the first two issuances, they'll be paid off January 15th, 2029 and January 1st of 2029. And then our 2014 issuance, which was just recently refinanced in 2024, goes out until 2036. So this slide shows the net result of our refinancing. So that blue line is before we refinanced our recent two debt issuances. We do not have an opportunity on the third one just yet. The refinancing opportunity is dictated in the official statements when you have the issuance of a bond. We are not coming up on that just yet, but we do monitor that. The orange line is after reissuance, so you can see that our debt service levy has substantially come down due to those refinancing opportunities. Any questions from the board?
All right. Thank you, James. Very detailed as usual. And I know the board we had the workshop a couple weeks ago to go through a lot of this and have been talking with James and Dr. McNeely over the last couple of months in our committees about the status of the budget. So thank you. Just to make sure, anybody have any comments or questions about it? All right. And I know it was a tough year this year, and I'm very happy that we can continue to meet the goals that we are trying to meet, even in the face of really substantially increasing costs. So with that, could I get a motion to approve items 1 and 2 in section D1 of our agenda, which includes approval of the budget? Comments or questions? All in favor?
It's a roll call.
Oh, there we go.
Ms. Arcaro-Burns? Yes. Mrs. Aurora? Yes. Mrs. Barnes? Yes. Mrs. Fowles-Macaluso? Dr. Myatt?
Yes.
Mrs. Miller? Yes. Mrs. Morano? Yes. Mr. Weeks?
Yes.
Mr. Villanueva?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next up in our agenda are travel expenditures, approval requests. Could I get a motion for the approval of items 3 to 8? Comments or questions? Thank you to More Arts that gave a donation of over $2,000 for Roberts and South Valley. And all in favor? Noes or abstentions? Thank you. Next is employee relations. Could I get a motion for the approval of items 1 to 15? Comments or questions? Another roll call vote.
Ms. Arcaro-Burns? Yes. Mrs. Aurora? Yes. Mrs. Barnes? Yes. Mrs. Fowles-Macaluso? Dr. Myatt? Yes. Mrs. Miller? Yes. Mrs. Morano? Yes. Mr. Weeks?
Yes.
Mr. Villanueva?
Yes.
Thank you.
Could I get a motion to approve the superintendent's HIB report, please? Comments or questions? Okay. All in favor? Any noes or abstentions? Thank you. Is there any old business? Any new business? Thank you. We're now to our second public comment section, which is for public comment on items on or off the agenda that relate to the school district. Again, there's a large number of people in the crowd, so I would ask that you keep your comments to 3 minutes. Can I get a motion to open? All in favor? All right, if you'd like to make a comment, please take the microphone, state your name and address, and keep your comment to 3 minutes, please.
Hello, my name is Margaret Nissen, 409 Dawson Street. I'm a special ed teacher at Moorestown High School, and I would like to commend and thank the UES staff for all their hard work. This month at the UES, students participated in the Boosterthon fundraiser sponsored by Home and School. Students concluded the fundraiser with a fun run for grades 4th and 5th and a color run for 6th graders. We would also like to thank the following staff members for their hard work with the UES musical this year: Sarah Ginter, Regina Schmidt, Jessica Mannion, Barb Rogers, Carol Erb, Rachel Martin, Renata Baldwin, and Ariana Labetti. Thank you also to the custodians for all that they do for us with the musical. The school musical, SpongeBob, will be presented this month on March 21st and 22nd. Students from all 3 grades have been practicing for this entertaining musical. There will be an abbreviated performance for all students in the school during an assembly this month, and a final thank you to the 6th grade teams for organizing and attending their field trip to Penn Museum at the end of March. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Cindy Joe. I stand before you today as a concerned community member who believes in fairness, transparency, and representation. Nearly a year ago, we asked administration to recognize Lunar New Year as a school holiday. Yet the 2025-2026 school calendar does not include it. What's worse, this decision was made without transparency or meaningful community input. We only found out by looking at the approved calendar, nearly a month later after you approved it. This was just not an oversight. It was a deliberate exclusion from the process. The Asian community is often seen as quiet, but silence should never be mistaken for acceptance. We are here to say, unequivocally, that we deserve to be seen, heard, and included in decisions that shaped our children's future. Transparency matters. It is essential. A decision affecting the entire community should not happen behind closed doors. Fairness matters. Some cultural holidays are recognized while others are denied. This sends a message of exclusion. Mental health must be considered. Feeling unseen takes a toll. Did the board consider how this affects Asian students? We are not asking for special treatment. We are only asking for fair treatment. If Lunar New Year is a logistical challenge, how do you explain accommodation for Eid, Diwali, and Jewish holiday? Other top performing districts have made it work. Why not Moorestown? Moorestown is evolving, as you explained. Embracing change does not weaken us. It makes us stronger. Our school should reflect the diverse, inclusive community we aspire to be. We ask the board to revisit and amend the 2025 and 2026 school calendar. The time for discussions has passed. It is time for action. Other districts have made the changes. Moorestown can and should do the same. These decisions appear discriminatory against the Asian community, but I believe this is not the legacy that you want to leave behind. You have a very diverse group of people here. Challenge the status quo. Hold each other accountable. So I ask you to reflect. If this were your child asking for fairness, how would you feel? If your child felt excluded, what would you do? This is your chance for inclusion, respect, and fairness. The trust of this community is invaluable, and you will need it as you navigate the issues this year. Do the right thing. Make the right decision. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Tyler Lay, and it's my birthday today, and I want to say something. I am a proud fourth grader at UES. Today I want to talk to you about something very important to me, Lunar New Year. If you look at my friend group, you'll see that we come from many different cultures. At lunch, I love sharing the delicious Vietnamese food my grandma packs me, just like my friends share their Indian, Chinese, or other cuisines. It makes me so happy that we can proudly bring our own food to school. But my parents told me when they were growing up, they were made fun of for bringing Vietnamese food. That makes me realize how lucky I am that times have changed. That's why I was so surprised and very mad when I heard that Lunar New Year was not approved as a school holiday. It made me wonder, why don't you think it is worth celebrating? I thought times have changed, but this feels confusing and hurtful. Food is my way of sharing cuisines with my friends. In the same way, I want my friends to appreciate and respect my culture, my holiday, and my traditions. Just like Diwali, Eid, and Jewish holidays are recognized, Lunar New Year should be too. Lunar New Year is more than just a celebration. It is a time for family, traditions, and honoring our heritage. It matters to me, my family, and many others in our community. Please listen to us and recognize Lunar New Year as an official school holiday. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Tiffany Lee, and I'll be speaking tonight about why I think Lunar New Year should be observed by the Moorestown Public School District. For some context, Lunar New Year is the beginning of the new year on lunar calendars, so it's basically just New Year's Day, but on the lunar calendar. Lunar New Year is celebrated by many, especially those of Asian heritage. It is a huge holiday for those who celebrate, with celebrations and festivities lasting all day long, even all week long. Obviously, Lunar New Year is a very important and special holiday to many. The Moorestown School District chooses to celebrate and observe other holidays such as Eid, Diwali, Ramadan, Rosh Hashanah, etc., which are all holidays that hold so much significance to those who choose to celebrate them. Lunar New Year is equally cherished as these holidays by the people who celebrate. So I felt really confused and angry when the holiday that I cherish and love was rejected by the BOE. My family and many others were hurt by your choice, choosing to not observe Lunar New Year as a holiday. When I talked to my Asian friends at school after the decision came out, we all felt the same, ignored, offended, and dejected. We live and go to school in a predominantly non-Asian community, so not being represented and being treated unfairly made lots of us feel like we didn't really matter to this district. In a town that preaches for diversity and respect for all cultures, where was our respect when the Board of Education made this decision? What made including Lunar New Year as an observable holiday so difficult? This decision did not have to be made, since other school districts near us observe and celebrate Lunar New Year. Districts such as Cherry Hill, Philadelphia School Districts, Princeton, Ridgewood, and many more districts around Jersey observe Lunar New Year. These districts celebrate Lunar New Year because they know the significance that it holds to the people who celebrate. Even on the NJ.gov, the official site of the state of New Jersey, it says that Lunar New Year is listed as a religious holiday promoting pupil absence. Having Lunar New Year as an observed holiday is not only beneficial to the Asian community, but could also be a learning experience for students and teachers across the district. This year, not even one teacher said Happy Lunar New Year to any of my classmates and I. This shows that even the adults that are teaching us don't even acknowledge our holiday. Both students and teachers could learn more about why we celebrate Lunar New Year and why we are so proud that we get to share our culture with them. The point that I want you to take away from this is that Lunar New Year is a holiday that shouldn't be ignored. The Asian community will keep fighting for our holiday, Lunar New Year, to be accepted and observed in our district, because we know that we are important too. To the Board of Education and to those who stand in front of me, thank you, and make this message be heard.
Hi, I'm Karen Reiner, 52 East Central, and I'd like to wish him a happy birthday. What a courageous thing to do on your birthday. I also wanted to talk about Lunar New Year. I first became myself familiar with this holiday only a few years ago. It's embarrassing to admit. I also had never heard of Diwali. I had never heard of Eid. I had never heard of Juneteenth. I'm an educated person. I've been to college. I think that when we as a community celebrate holidays of people who look and think and worship and celebrate differently than we do in our own homes, we become better citizens of the world. We become better community members. We become better friends. And Sharon, who in the audience here, has become a very dear friend of mine. And we met because 4 years ago, during the pandemic, she put together a presentation on Lunar New Year as part of the organization that I run in Moorestown called More Unity. More Unity's goal is to bridge divides in our community through celebrating and education of different cultural heritages. And Sharon kicked that off with just a Zoom call about Lunar New Year 4 years ago. That evolved into a celebration at the Chinese restaurant in town, Oriental Pearl, or was it Akira, where we dined on Chinese food and we learned about Lunar New Year from Sharon and Felix, her son. And then that became an event 2 years ago that drew hundreds of people to the Moorestown Library and at the Perkins Center for the Arts. And this year, the same thing, hundreds of people coming for events about Lunar New Year. And children of the Asian community said to me, I finally feel seen. I finally feel heard. So I would also like to petition that you reconsider your decision to make Lunar New Year a holiday, and if it can't be done for this coming year, then put it on your agenda for the following year. It's one of the largest holidays celebrated in the world. And I think our Asian community, of which there's only a fraction here tonight, deserves that, as do all of our non-Asian students who will learn about their beautiful culture. Thank you.
I'm Christina Milligan, and I'm here representing Home and School today. I first wanted to extend a thank you to all of you for supporting us over the past few weeks with Boosterthon, which we held at the UES and the 3 lower elementary schools. Thanks to the incredible generosity of our community, we've exceeded our district-wide fundraising goal by over 25%, and donations are still coming in. As a token of our appreciation, Home and School will be providing additional field day support or a special assembly for all 4 of these schools. We're currently working with our principals to plan these events. Our success through these fund runs allows Home and School to continue supporting all 6 schools in meaningful ways. This year, a few things we have done are invest over $10,000 in playground improvements at South Valley and Roberts, contributed over $2,800 in technology upgrades in the Baker cafeteria. We provided over $4,300 towards field trips at the UES, and we funded almost $13,000 for an active floor here at WAMS. At the high school level, we're excited to announce that our scholarship application for graduating seniors will open in the next few days, providing $5,000 in scholarships. Additionally, we continue to support Project Graduation, the Madrigals, and various other campus events. One highly anticipated event for our students is coming up next week, the Scholastic Book Fair. Our goal has always been to help build students' home libraries, and I believe that our fall book fairs were a tremendous success. This past fall, families purchased 8,239 books at WAMS, UES, Baker, Roberts, and South Valley. Home and School also ensured that every single student had the opportunity to take home a book of their own. Beyond home libraries, our book fairs also strengthen our school and classroom libraries. Thanks to the Scholastic Dollars program, Home and School just this last year was able to provide over $33,000 towards school and classroom libraries at each of our schools. So thank you again for your continued support, and as always, if you have any questions or concerns, please contact me. Thank you.
Hello. First, happy birthday. And I am Erin Kitley, and I teach at Baker, and I would like to commend the Baker staff for their many exciting events. Kindergarten had an exciting hands-on learning experience with Quiver Farm's chick hatching program. The students received eggs, carefully monitored them in an incubator, and watched in amazement as the tiny chicks hatched. So cute. This special project wasn't just for kindergartners. Students from all classes at Baker had the chance to visit, observe the chicks up close, gently hold them, and feel their soft, downy feathers. It was a wonderful way to bring science to life and spark curiosity in our young learners. Kindergarten students in Mrs. Lee's class and second graders in Mrs. Vaxman's class came together for a special collaborative lesson on Garrett Morgan, an African-American inventor and entrepreneur. Morgan is best known for inventing an early version of the 3-position traffic light, greatly improving road safety. After learning about his contributions, the students worked together to create their own stoplights, reinforcing the importance of innovation and teamwork. It was a fantastic opportunity for cross-grade learning and celebrating an important historical figure. My class celebrated Black History Month with a special study on Misty Copeland, the first African-American female principal dancer with the American Ballet Theater. Students learned about her perseverance, talent, and impact on the world of dance. To honor her achievements, they created beautiful art projects inspired by her performances, bless you, showcasing both creativity and appreciation for her groundbreaking contributions to the arts. It was a meaningful way to highlight resilience and representation in history. Officer Jim brought in a special cultural experience to Baker by visiting classrooms in his traditional Irish kilt. He shared stories about his heritage and the history behind the kilt, giving students a glimpse into Irish traditions. Beyond keeping our schools safe, Officer Jim goes above and beyond to educate and connect with our students, making learning both fun and meaningful. We're grateful for all he does to protect and inspire our school community. He also makes a mean crepe, so thank you.
Hello, my name is Monica Bell, and I work at Moorestown High School, and I would just like to highlight some of our staff members for their contributions to our school community. Ms. Lomas coordinated MHS's Neuroscience Sophomore Club members to attend a Princeton Brain Bee competition. They competed against other area students to demonstrate their knowledge of the brain and its functions. They did receive a tour of a Princeton neuroscience laboratory and mentoring from current Princeton STEM students. Dr. Bjernstad and the International Affairs Club hosted nearly 3,000 delegates to their Moorestown Model UN conference. The club wrote the background briefs for 14 committees, solicited donations from local businesses, negotiated with caterers, coordinated the custodial staff, and arranged for a guest speaker when the scheduled speaker abruptly canceled. It was another great example of student leadership and resourcefulness. In February, Miss Oswald Love allowed all Spanish 3 classes to participate in an art project celebrating el racismo, an art aesthetic and cultural value of the people living in the many communities along the U.S.-Mexican border. This art prides itself on making something out of nothing or turning a negative into a positive. Spanish 3 students created a scene of their hometown or a place special to them using only found materials to honor this colorful, sustainable Latino art style. And lastly, the MHS School Counseling Office hosted various FAFSA evening events, which provided our students and their families with an opportunity to complete the FAFSA with support from executives from the Higher Education Student Assistance Authority. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Mike Capellucci, and I teach 8th grade here at WAMS, and I'd like to commend our staff for the great things that they're doing here at WAMS. The WAMS Spring Musical, Legally Blonde Jr., directed by Miss Knight and Miss Knighting, was a smashing success. The talented student performers put on an amazing show. Students were involved in all aspects of the set, and props, music and lighting, and makeup and hair. Mrs. Gore's language arts students wrote and illustrated children's books. They had their books published and traveled to Baker this month and read them to the elementary school students. Thank you to Home and School and Mrs. Lee, who organized a presentation by Marion Blumenthal-Lazen about her experiences during the Holocaust. Mrs. Lazen's presentation was a culminating activity on the Holocaust study for the 7th grade students. And finally, WAM students are enjoying participating in Spirit Week this week, where 7th and 8th grade face off to show the most school spirit. Student council advisors and students planned a door decorating contest, fun dress-up theme days, and a culminating pep rally at the end of the week. Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Rob Penrose, and I know it's getting a little late, so I'll try to make this brief. I heard it mentioned earlier today that this seems to be a full house, so I wonder what the issue could be. I'm telling you right now, I think this is an interesting position to stand on, but I'm here in support of the Lunar New Year. I want to make sure that everyone is clear on kind of the reasons why we have such a full house tonight and why we have people here with prepared statements. We have, what? I don't know what the exact demographics are. I'm sure you all know better than me. 9% East Asian community in this, polity right now, and then we've got about reaching 16% for the school district, and I'm sure that's going to be growing, judging by the number of residents versus the number of students that we have here. So I'm sure that with the prepared statements and the amount of passion that we see going on, this is not an issue that's going to go away anytime soon. So I think that there's a couple things that need to be addressed in relation to Lunar New Year. Number one, it's reinstatement on the agenda for the calendar, and also addressing some of these transparency issues, frankly. I think that's an important one to address, and I think that's an important question. Are we allowed to ask questions on this, or is this a one-way thing?
It's a one-way thing.
Okay.
There's a go to the order section at the end of the meeting, and if board members want to address things that are said in public comment, then that's our opportunity to do so. But it's not a question and answer session.
Oh, thank you. Well, those are my thoughts. I'm here with my family, and they're here to support this petition as well. So thank you all for hearing us, and we'll hear more. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. My name is Alexander Penrose. I'm here with my family, and I just want to say, as like a half Asian student, I think it's very unfair that everybody else, like from Ramadan and Diwali, they get their holiday, but we don't. And I think that's very unfair because I want to spend this holiday, with my Lunar New Year, with my family and not need to worry about like needing to miss school. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Alexandra Wee Hickman, and I am a senior at Moorestown High School. I'm also the co-founder and co-president of the newly created Asian Heritage Club at the high school. And I would like to call to your attention the issue that many before have called to your attention, the Lunar New Year, just for a couple more minutes. To preface, I'd like to say that Lunar New Year is also known as Chinese New Year, but is significant to many Asian cultures, such as many Asian cultures and countries such as China, South Korea, Vietnam, Japan, the Philippines, and more. It is also celebrated by 1.8 billion people worldwide. However, the institution of Lunar New Year in the calendar is more than a celebration of Asian culture. It is a means of education and acceptance of our Asian community. I am extremely fortunate to be receiving my education at Moorestown High School and graduating this year. But there have been times where I have not felt the most welcome as an Asian American student. During the COVID-19 pandemic, many would question if I could spread the disease to them if I got too close. It hurt me as a 7th grade student, 12 years old, just trying to find our place in this very school, William Allen Middle School. Microaggressions such as this are what led me and 4 other students at the high school to found Asian Heritage Club, creating a space to educate fellow students on Asian history and customs and promote the appreciation of the profound influence of Asian cultures. I'm grateful to say that we have amassed a club of 80 students at Moorestown High School, but that is not nearly enough. Unfortunately, Lunar New Year typically falls in the period of intense midterm studying for many high schoolers. One of the first times I was able to celebrate the holiday with my grandparents after COVID-19 hit was when I was a freshman at Moorestown High School in 2022. That very same day, I had to take 2 midterms, foregoing any plans to spend time with my family and grandparents to do traditional activities similar to what some of you may do on important days such as Christmas, Rosh Hashanah, Hanukkah, Eid, and Diwali in order to study. We need action from the Board of Education so that high school kids don't have to decide between studying for midterms and being together with their family on this important cultural holiday. Not only that, the addition of Lunar New Year would create an opportunity for teachers and students alike to become more aware, educated, and celebrate our heritage alongside us. Although I am graduating this year, I want to make sure that the voices of future generations of Moorestown Asian American students are heard. We deserve a welcoming space to celebrate our culture
and that is what I stand here for. Please add Lunar New Year to the Moorestown calendar, if not in this year, but the next. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Melody. I'm here, just like most of our speakers, I'm here to ask the board to modify the calendar for 2026 and to put Lunar New Year as an official school holiday. Lunar New Year is one of the most important celebrations for millions of families, including many students in our district. The matter of fact, the exact data on niche is 13.5% of the student population are Asian. They're much more than Muslim families and India families. So that is the time for family reunions, cultural traditions, and new beginnings. However, without a day off, many students face a difficult choice: celebrate with their families or attend school. So just like I said, Asian students are a big portion of the minority population in Moorestown School District. Yet, despite this, Lunar New Year, the most important holiday in our culture, is not recognized on the school calendar, while other major cultural holidays like Diwali and Eid are. That is very disappointing, especially when many other top-rated school districts have already made Lunar New Year a holiday. I actually just, one of our members, Sharon, shared a form with our superintendent. 10 top-rated schools in New Jersey, 8 of them, they have Lunar New Year as their holiday. So they have that day off. Either it publicly written as Lunar New Year, or it says winter break. Regardless, it's off that day. From 11th to the 20th schools, I believe it was 6 out of 10, they recognized Lunar New Year. Also, I believe the day's also off. Just like everyone else, our students deserve to be seen, heard, and respected. While, again, Eid and Diwali were recognized as a holiday in 2022, Lunar New Year got dropped off, and I'm wondering why. We then followed all the procedures and processes, but never received any notification. Cindy found out the proof of the calendar for 2026 on the website herself. We feel being very disrespected and undervalued. By excluding Lunar New Year, the district is sending a message that all culture and tradition don't matter. It is disheartening and makes many of us feel ignored and mistreated. Our kids are very confused about why the school recognized Diwali and Eid as holidays, but not Lunar New Year. Even though there are more Asian students than Muslim students, it feels unfair, and it sends the message that their culture is less or not important. This has become a huge issue, forcing students to choose between celebrating the most important festival with their families or attending school. No child should have to face that choice. Lunar New Year deserves the same recognition as other cultural holidays. So we're here, right, as many of our students need to go to school tomorrow, and we work all day, we stayed here. So we're here to request our board to modify the calendar for 2026 and to make Lunar New Year a recognized school holiday. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Felix, and I know you've heard this a lot today, but I'm asking the Board of Education to add Lunar New Year as a recognized holiday. I want to expand on a point that I heard earlier, that during the pandemic, a lot of people started targeting their hate towards the Asian community, asking if we could give the virus. The reason for a lot of misconceptions like these is because we don't share enough information. And I regret to admit this, but a lot of that can be traced to our fault. We weren't ever open enough to share that information with the public. But now, because we are sharing this, because we are asking to make Lunar New Year a holiday and other holidays recognized in Asian culture, the only person who can be blamed for not adding it is the Board of Education. We are pushing to have this as a recognized holiday because it's a part of our culture, and as I've said before. And I think it's very important to us that we get to see it shown throughout the world, for lack of a better term. I think it was, I didn't recognize it when I was first doing it, but I'm very grateful for my mom right there to have taken me out of school during like the first day of Lunar New Year. I think that's so sweet now, because we get to recognize a holiday that you don't really see very often. And places like Perkins Center for the Arts actually showing what would happen, like line dancing, that is not very common apparently, and I think that's really sweet. So I just want to ask once again, please make Lunar New Year a recognized holiday. Thank you. Also, happy birthday.
Hi, my name is Dana Hendrickson. I teach at South Valley Elementary School. I actually came here tonight to support my community members and former students and my daughter's friends who celebrate Lunar New Year, but I'm doubling up by reading some good news by South Valley. So I just wanted to highlight our recent music show led by our music teacher, Mrs. Luther. Music education is an important part of our school experience. Not only does it enrich our students, but it teaches valuable lessons about working together and helping to build confidence. Recently, our first graders at South Valley participated in their very first stage performance, and it was called the Snow Show. They performed in front of a packed house of parents. The second and third graders are currently preparing for their upcoming shows as well, and we want to thank Mrs. Luther for helping our students to grow.
Hi, Board of Education. Thank you for giving me the time to stand here and speak. I have a sign that says why I'm here. My daughter, Isabel, who's in the UES, made this today. I have 3 children, one in high school, one in UES, and one in South Valley. Very happy family living in Moorestown. In today's talk, I just wanted to give you my perspective on culture is a gift, really. And I've benefited from the culture that I grew up in, which is Chinese culture. I'm benefiting greatly from the American culture that I've been spending the majority of my time in, pretty much in adulthood, right? And then I also benefit from culture education that my children give me because they've been taught in school by their teachers. So they talk about the Jewish holiday that happens every week, Shabbat, that they don't need to work on Saturdays. No work needs to be done. They turn off the electronics, right? And they take the time to reflect. And it's this spirit of reflecting that I feel that everybody needs to have on a regular basis. And I'm guilty of always celebrating Chinese New Year as a festival to eat, to cook, and to watch some TV. But if I really, if I have the day off, and I can sit there and reflect on what Chinese New Year means to me, then I can empower myself, empower my children. I'm guilty of not taking my children out of school on Chinese New Year, all right? I debate every year, but then I'm like, okay, I'm already taking a day off from work. Let me have the day to myself to reflect, right? But if you give us the holiday, right? The children can be school, and we can be can be off school, not away from school, off school, and we can reflect as a family, as a group, and as a community. That would be great. I also wanted to add, as we prepare our children, our youth, for the next 50 years that they will flourish in the world, don't we want to think about what culture gift we want to give them? They live in this great American culture, and then in the American culture, we were people who grow things out of nothing. We reward people who can stand up for the things that they grow. We love sports, but moreover, we love sportsmanship, and we love fairness. So I just love the American culture very much. And then we think about, what other cultural education we can give to our children that may not be inherent in the American culture, right? And then I feel that all these holidays and education around the holidays would be a great tool, not just for the Asian families, you know, Chinese, Vietnamese, Korean,
Thank you. If you could
Filipino.
wrap
I
it
need
up.
to speed
The
up.
3
Okay,
minutes is up.
okay.
No,
Let
no,
me
no.
just wrap up. Okay.
Thank you.
That, you know, in the next 50 years, everybody can see that the Asia Pacific countries are becoming more prominent economically, right? Asian countries becoming more prominent. So we need to prepare our children. So culture education is a gift that we can give them. And we can start from giving a school holiday to Lunar New Year. Thank you.
Thank you.
So in keeping with today's tradition, happy birthday! And yes, I am the data lady. I actually printed out the data about the top 20 schools according to the niche website and their handling of the Lunar New Year holiday. I printed 8 copies for you to take a look. And a quick introduction, my name is Sharon Ho. I am the proud mom of Emmett. No. Sorry. Thank you for the teacher who mentioned Legally Blonde. My son actually got first male role in that in that show. My name is Sharon Ho. I'm mom of Felix. I also have Luna. I have a girl, Luna, who graduated a few years ago, and another son who graduated way more than that. I have to first thank the school district because my children have really wonderful experience here. And that's because of hard work of many of Felix's teachers are here today. It's not planned. We just happened to walk right next to them, like we high-fived each of them. Also, I'm sure the Board of Educations have been working very hard. But still, I feel like today I feel very emotional about the topic of the Lunar New Year because the way how this issue came up, right? Now, to be honest, we really do feel that the school district is a school district that cares about almost all students, but one small group. This is no longer a very small group, right? So I really do invite you to reconsider your decision. We think it's actually a good decision to go back and change your decision for the coming school calendar year. You know, being kind of like pretty data-driven, we did a lot of research and we know that it is possible and it is actually practiced a lot in school district like this and near us. And finally, I want to tell you who we are not. This proposal that were mentioned today is unlike Mr. Heiser's proposal, doesn't cost 120 million or 112 million to pull off. It really takes some will. I know it takes a lot of juggling. I don't want to minimize the issue. Sorry, jokes aside, don't want to minimize the issue. But it takes a lot of will, I know, a lot of work, but it's not undoable. It's not impossible. We're also not here to say, oh, we're comparing to our friends from other ethnicities and feeling that they should be treated equally unfairly as we are. That's never the subject, you know, because some people are like, oh, do you mean that we should take Eid away? No, that's never the subject. As Nancy said, culture is a gift. If we can raise kids who are growing up in a 20,000 little town but has the whole globe in their heart, that is a gift that no other town around us has been trying to give, I have to say. Maybe except for Cherry Hill. They have Lunar New Year on their calendar. Three Kings Days, many other holidays.
Thank you.
We're
You're at
also
3 minutes, so if you
yes,
could
I know,
wrap it
I
up.
know. Sorry, got very emotional and spent too much time on my son. Finally, I also want to say what we're not. We are not going away. So if this issue is not handled in a way that is transparent and fair, and if we're still not included in this decision-making process, we're gonna be seeing you a lot. I'm sorry, but yeah, that's the decision. Thanks.
So
my name is Alkfan Zhang. I am a student here at the middle school, and so I go to school with a bunch of other kids who speak my language. I can talk to all the time, and basically we don't have a day off where we can celebrate our holiday. We can go out and eat, spend time with family, maybe go watch lion dance or dragon dances, and I feel like that we should be heard, that we should be honored like everybody else. I want to be treated equally, be able to speak my language, and like other teachers who have asked me about my culture, I want to be able to explain without being racially stereotyped or getting called names and all that sort. So I just want to ask you for a day off or maybe some recognition for our day, and thank you.
Rosemary Anderson. I live at 290 Crescent Ave. First off, as a teacher, to the kids in the room who spoke, you had a nice moment. And this is your world. We're just living in it. And a side note, I had a student a few years ago who spoke no English and used an iPad as a translator. And our music teacher, Laura DeShong, put on a Lunar New Year display. And he refused to talk. I'm going to cry because it was powerful. He refused to talk, but then during the display, you know, she did a whole song dance, kids sang. He came over and grabbed his iPad and translated to me, "We do this in my country." So it means something. Okay, so on to a few things about Roberts. So I'm just going to try to highlight a few awesome things that happened at Roberts. I teach third grade. In January, I'm not sure if it made it up to everyone here or all the people in the community right now, but Roberts collected 1,145 pounds of plastic through TerraCycle, so we now get a Trex bench. We're just trying to decide where that goes. I'm gonna, oh, thank you, right? So that's pretty good. Gonna try to go in order. The Roberts Garden, which also we try to do a lot of green initiatives at Roberts. We are our pollinator garden. Asparagus is currently in its third year, and we have garlic wintering over. All of the things that we grow, all the produce from the Roberts Garden gets donated to the local food bank. The third grade class, woo, we took our field trip to the Adventure Aquarium. Kids were stoked. Staff as well had a great time. Boosterthon, staff just worked through that in collaboration with Home and School. You know, it was a tough week and a half for the kids, but I think everyone really won in the end. And I'll come down to the book fair is an upcoming event. Third grade chorus, again, led by Laura DeShong, will be voluntarily singing at an event there, a concert there. And STEM Week, whoop, whoop, started off as Science Day 28 years ago at Roberts. 28 years ago, right? Let that sink in. And for the past 13 years since I've been doing it, in 2020, we turned it into STEM Week, thanks to some of the people sitting up there in the chair. And thanks to some of the other people sitting up there, we've had some awesome presentations over the years. So that's happening April 7th to 11th. So if you work in a scientific field and you have time, I can still put you on the schedule up until Friday. So thank you guys for your time, and always looking for a presenter.
Hello, Lisa Trapani. I am the MBA president. I teach at the high school. I just want to clarify a little bit about the calendar committee. So being a founding member of the calendar committee more than 28 years ago, I would like everyone to know that it is a collaborative effort, and every year that we have done it, we have met with a representative from each school, central administration, and building administration, and board members. So the preparation of the calendar as we do it is a collaborative. It is not done in secret from the perspective of the district and the staff members. So I just want to make that clear to everyone. And I believe that the board, Dr. McNeely, will address some of the things that were said here tonight, but I want to be clear that there is, from our perspective, it's not done in secret. So I just want to make that clear. So I do appreciate everyone who spoke, but what?
I was telling her the floor is yours, so to not engage in back and forth.
Oh, okay. No, ma'am.
Okay.
Right. So thank you. But I just wanted to make sure that that was clear, because we have had that committee for, like I said, 30 years. So that has been in existence. It is done. There's a lot of time that goes into it. And there's also a home and school representative, sometimes one or two, on that committee as well. So I just want to make that clear. So thank you, thank you.
Thank you.
Wait, I have one more thing to say. Sorry, I didn't talk for 3 minutes. I also wanted to say thank you to home and school, because I know a lot of the teachers do a lot of work with Booster Sign, but it all comes back to the schools, book fairs as well, and scholarships at the high school are a big deal, and I know how much they work, and a special shout out to Mrs. Milligan, who, took all of this on, and I know people at these tables have also had that role, so I really just want to say that, and at the end of the year, we'll go through some more specific things, but I definitely wanted to recognize them. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Seeing no one else approaching the microphone, can I get a motion to close public comment? All in favor? All right. We're now to the good of the order section of our agenda. Thank you, everybody, for coming out and sharing your thoughts on the Lunar New Year holiday and the process. Happy birthday to Tyler, if he's still here. Especially hearing from the students, it's always impressive, and to hear them articulate their feelings and their desires about it is meaningful. So thank you for coming out. It reminds me a bit of myself being the son of a Filipino immigrant that grew up in Moorestown and went through these schools. I understand. I get it. Nobody knows what miso de gallo was, or eating balut, pancit, and all those other cultural things that we celebrate in my house. I understand where you're coming from. As Mr. Pani had said, there is a calendar committee and a process, and there's a lot of permutations. There's a lot of factors. I give a ton of credit to that committee for putting these calendars together, because coming up with the calendar and the schedule is a tremendously difficult job. And we hear you. We appreciate everything that everybody said tonight. And I am sure that your comments will be considered every year that the calendar is developed. And I get it. I hear what you're saying, that you're going to show up until it happens. And that's fine. But, that's really all I wanted to say. I hear you. I understand. And so thank you. Anybody else have anything to say?
I just wanted to thank everybody for coming out and taking the time to prepare a statement and to speak up. I'm not on the calendar committee as a board member, but I did sit on it as part of Home and School, and I do appreciate how difficult it is to coordinate and how many moving parts there are. And I do, as a board member, we trust our administration, our faculty, our staff to let us know this is what is going to work, and this is why other things won't work. And all of that being said, this should be priority for next year if this cannot be fixed this year, which I don't realistically think that's possible, but if anyone wants to correct me, that'd be great. But I think this needs to be a priority, not just because of the voices that we heard tonight, but we are an inclusive community. We're supposed to be. That's what we strive to be. That's what we want to be for our kids. And that's what I want to be as a parent. And I know a lot of people up here agree with that sentiment. And so I would really like confirmation from not just the board members here, but also just from the administration that this is going to be priority for next year, calendar committee.
Anyone else?
Sure. I'll also thank everybody who came out. I've had conversations with several of you prior to this meeting. Yes, hi Felix. Happy birthday. You know, like Mr. Villanueva, I was a minority student here in this school, in this district. And, you know, my motivation for being on the board, part of it, is to continue the strong traditions and ensure that we still have a quality school district. And you know, it's something I realize that it takes dedicated people to make that happen. You know, everybody here tonight who's speaking to this issue and our teachers, everybody here is dedicated. And that's what makes this such a strong community. And so, you know, again, I appreciate people sharing their feelings, their thoughts. But going back to, you know, being a minority student in this district, I've wanted to see change, and thankfully we have seen change. And actually, as we were talking about yesterday, Sharon and Cindy, you know, we have rapidly changed, and I don't think we should slow down on that. So I appreciate Melissa, you know, giving that charge, and I would echo that we figure out how to make this a priority. But I don't want to lose sight of how far we've come, even while we recognize that we still need more, to do more. And I think we can get there. And I look forward to working together, the community, with the administration, with the rest of the board, to helping us get there. So thanks.
All right. Unless anybody else has anything to say, I'd like a motion to adjourn.
I'll say motion to adjourn.
All in favor?